Hi, everyone. My name is Gabrielle Sarlo. I am the Eastern Onboarding Chair as well as an advocacy committee member with NSPN. For those of you who are not as familiar with NSPN, NSPN is the National Science Policy Network. And I just want to say a couple words. So NSPN is an association of civically engaged individuals as well as local chapters. We focus on providing educational opportunities such as this workshop for those interested in building skills, creating networks, and advancing their careers. We are very excited for today's session on navigating multicultural advocacy and diplomacy, insights from a scientist turned policy advocate. So we should be getting a lot of great information tonight. I am going to turn it over to Mary, who is going to be the moderator for the session, as well as the person who introduces our speaker. So Mary, if you want to come and take it away.
Thanks for the intro, Gabrielle. Welcome everyone to join us for the event today. As Gabrielle said, my name is Mary. I am currently an earth sciences PhD candidate at Northern Illinois University, studying climate change in Northern Europe. And I serve as the vice chair for NSPN's chapter support committee. Also, briefly about administrative notes before I introduce our speaker. So for this particular event, our speaker will present first, and then we will open the floor up for Q&A afterwards. I will be monitoring the chat, so if you have a question, please post it there. As a reminder, please mute your microphones during the presentation, and we also encourage having your cameras on for an engaging participation. All right, so without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Luz Cumba García, who is an immunologist working at the intersection of biomedical science, public policy, and science diplomacy. Luz is currently a second-year AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellow in the Office of Mexican Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. In this role, she leverages her technical expertise to inform and support bilateral policy development between the U.S. and Mexico. In her initial fellowship year, Luz worked with the Middle East Regional Cooperation Program at the U.S. Agency for International Development, contributing to the advancement of Arab-Israeli scientific collaboration and regional development through research grants. Her active role as a science diplomacy fellow at the Inter-American Institute for Global Change Research on Science, Technology, and Policy underscores her dedication to policy and diplomacy. Dr. Cumba Garcia's influence extends beyond her fellowship roles, though. She's a founding member of the Science Diplomacy Network in Latin America and the Caribbean, and participated in several science diplomacy workshops, including the AAAS Science Diplomacy and Leadership Workshop, the AAAS TWAS Science Diplomacy course, and the INSID SP Science Diplomacy School. Her academic background comprises of a PhD and master's in immunology, alongside with a BS in cellular and molecular biology. So originating from San Juan, Puerto Rico, she strives to champion advocacy, science communication, and community engagement. So welcome again, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much to NSPN for the invitation. I'm so glad to see some familiar faces here. Thank you so much for joining. Please keep your cameras on. It's always nice to not be talking to a black square. And I want to make this as dynamic as I can, because I know it's already 6 p.m. here in Washington, D.C. It's been a long day for me, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit of why. And this was not in my plans, what happened today, but I'm gonna tell you. So I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see, okay. All right. So thank you so much for that kind introduction. Sometimes I get exhausted of listening to all the things that I have had the opportunity, and I've been truly blessed to have all these opportunities, and I'm happy to share it with others and hopefully inspire others to do similar things, not the same things, right? Because otherwise it will be boring. So I'm an immunologist, I'm a policy advisor, and I'm a science communicator. And during my talk, you're going to see how these different roles merge, right? I'm currently a AAA Science and Technology Policy Fellow, but I'm also an IAI STEP Science Diplomacy Fellow, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this fellowship. So, who am I, right? Why am I here? I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I am a cellular and molecular biologist. I got my degree from Universidad Metropolitana in San Juan, Puerto Rico in 2008, so it's been a while. And during that time, while I was doing my bachelor's degree, I had the opportunity of doing research in different countries, in Germany, Brazil, Spain, and in the US. And also I had the opportunity of teaching abroad in China to first-year college students, and in Spain as well, and in Puerto Rico. I'm also an immunologist. I got my master's degree from Universidad de Granada in Granada, Spain. Beautiful place. If you haven't been, you should visit it. And my PhD in immunology as well from Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And since 2022, I've been in the AAAS fellowship. My first year was with the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and now I just started less than a month ago at the Department of State. And all these roles combined have merged to, in my opinion, two of my most important roles and the roles that I'm mostly passionate about, which is science communication and advocacy in science diplomacy and policy. And throughout my different roles in my career, I've been able to experience firsthand these processes and contribute in a meaningful way. So why are we here? Why are you even paying attention to what I'm saying at 6 p.m. in the evening? I think it's very important, and I'm sure that you all know how important and crucial it is to prepare scientists for science policy, for science diplomacy, and the importance of those bridges between academia and policy. I really like this image of the Hague Journal of Diplomacy, because it merges the skills and assets that you have to have both in academia and in policy, and how they complement each other. As you might be aware, in academia, we need skills relevant to policy processes in some instances, especially if they are related to your research. Application of the research to those policy processes, I think everybody should have this. It's unfortunate that not everybody has this skill, but this is very important. And the consideration of societal engagement in STEM recruitment and rotation. While in the policy area, you need an ability to maintain the engagement with non-policymakers, with the scientists, right? Incorporation of research into policy processes, what we call the policy informed, right? Policy making aspect. And we also, it's very important to promote the recruitment of scientists into policy-making positions. And this is something that the fellowships, such as the AAAS, do very well. And I really like this, and I'm going to use this diagram as the frame of the principal frame of my talk. 12 ways to prepare for a science policy career. There are so many ways, things that I'm sure, because you are so proactive, I'm super sure about that you're already doing, right? But I'm gonna focus on only these ones that are in the square. The importance of enrolling in fellowships, joining professional societies and societies in general, such as NSPN organizations, engagement with university government relations, leading and founding extracurriculars, and engaging in science outreach and communication. And as you might notice, this is in red because for me is one of the most important things in my career, right? And what I'm focusing mostly right now. So why is effective science communication crucial for evidence-based informed policymaking? First of all, what is science communication? It's the practice that allows scientists to communicate science with others outside of our professional bubble. This includes students, journalists, public. And as you might see in this diagram, there's like a loop, a feedback process, how the policymakers affect science news, affect what the journalists publish. This has an impact in society, how scientists affect society, and how scientists affect institution and policy making, basically. So it's like a feedback. Everything is interconnected. And as you might be aware, right, and this was so obvious during the pandemic, every disaster movie starts with the government ignoring a scientist. You have the zombie apocalypse, and you have all these Hollywood movies that we thought that were fictional, which are, I don't think they're so fictional anymore. And this is why science communication is so important for evidence-informed policymaking. And I'm going to provide some tips for effective science communication. I'm aware that in the audience, we might have scientists, but we might also have policymakers or people working directly in the policymaking arena. So these tips are inclusive for both audiences. I think it's very important to clearly and concisely convey the message to ensure everybody's understanding. So for this, you have to know your audience, right? You have to know your goal. That's the first thing. You have to what do you want to do? What do you want to do with the information that you want to share? You want to inform, you want to educate, you want to persuade, inspire. What is your goal? And this is applicable when you're starting a PowerPoint presentation or any type of presentation. It's very important to understand the goal, the audience. Are you talking to students? Are you talking to media, to scientists, to politicians, general audience, agencies? It's very sad that sometimes you have a very important thing to convey, to say, and because you don't deliver the message effectively, the message gets lost. So this is crucial. It's very important to know your audience. And third, what is your message? What do you want to say? Why is important? And why do we care, right? And what do you want people to remember? You want to make your presentation, whatever you're doing, memorable for people to take away a take-home message, right? So it's very important, and I take this very seriously, very serious to understand the audience, the message, and the goal in order to be more prepared. So I really like this analogy of the funnel, and I use a lot of analogies and metaphors in order to communicate depending on the audience that I'm talking to. So think about effective science communication as a funnel process. The first thing that you want to do is grab the audience attention. You're going to use examples that are relevant and interesting, things that are appealing to the public, the attention getter. This is, for me, the most important part of your message, right? Of your talk or whatever you're doing. And this will set the stage for what is going to come next. Second, talk about the science. Describe what was done and found according to the audience level of expertise. And this is in bold. I put it in bold because you're not going to go into the nitty-gritty talking about all the scientific methodology, all of that, which I know is important because I'm a scientist myself. If you're talking to a policymaker or if you're talking to a member of Congress, right? They don't care about how you came out with that conclusion. They are going to care about the main message, and most importantly, why should people care about your project? What is the bigger picture and the significance for policy making? Why is so important for policy making? And I put this arrow here because when you go through the last step through this process, it's important to emphasize the prior examples that you mentioned, right? So emphasizing, highlighting, being repetitive is very important. Do's and don'ts of effective science communication. Take into consideration cultural relevance. And this is involved because this is very important for this talk, right? I'm not gonna speak in the same way to somebody from the Middle East than I would speak to somebody from Puerto Rico or somebody from Mexico, right? We have to be very aware of that. I'm gonna be talking a little bit more about this. Use analogies and metaphors, very important to deliver your message. There is a concept called culturally relevant science communication, where your message is based on the experiences of the audience and in examples that they can relate to in order to create rapport. And I'll show you some examples of that. It's very important to define key concepts early on. The technical things are very important to define from the get-go. Avoiding technicism as much as possible, but when you have to use it, be able to explain it. Prepare and practice. Practice is in caps here because I cannot emphasize this enough. It doesn't matter how many times I give presentations. For me, it's very important to be well prepared and practice. Respecting your audience. I don't have to say anything about this, right? Supporting your arguments with data and citations. This is true even at the government level, at things that I'm doing right now. You have to cite your sources. This is very important. Using images and pictures. A picture speaks more than 1,000 words, and this is true for every stage of your career. Storytelling. Don't you ever underestimate the power of storytelling. I think it's when you want to persuade about something, this is something that I do often. I just tell a story and just emphasize why is this important. And less is more, right? I personally hate slides that are super busy, that are like have tons of words and tons of text. I think it's very important to keep things as simple as possible. The same thing with text. So, okay. I told you about all these things about tips, do's and don'ts about science communication, because effective communication is essential to connecting the scientific and the diplomatic worlds and influencing policymaking. I really like this image. It's from the S44C European Science Diplomacy course. It's a free course, a certificate course, and I actually recommend this if you have the time to take it. There are some skills that are required or essential, right, to the world of science. We have analytical skills, non-partisan, this is very important, flexible, specialist, transparent, peer review, and so on. The same thing with the world of diplomacy. You have to be practical, government aligned, follow a protocol, seek consensus, and different things. But when both worlds merge here at the center, there are some things in common to create effective communication, right? Languages, of course, that's very important. Distilling complex information, trust building and empathy, networking, and so on. Interpersonal skills, what they call the soft skills, for me are not so soft, right? For me, they're very important. Don't underestimate the power of relationships and how they will get you to achieve the outcomes that you want. Okay, so a brief exercise, 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to share, or I think if somebody can share from NSPN the link to the Jamboard, that would be great. There are 2 questions, right? What skills and competencies would a scientist need to positively influence policymaking? And what skills and competencies would a diplomat or policymaker need to positively influence policymaking? So 2 or 3 minutes, if you can all go to that Jamboard and type something, that would be great. I promise you, it's only 2 times that you're gonna have to do this. I know it's late, but it will be great if you put your ideas and we have a discussion on this. So I'm gonna give you 2 or 3 minutes in order to do that. Sharing. Yeah, thank you for sharing the screen. It could be any skill. It could be related to science communication, but also to any skill that you think. Okay, I'm seeing some here. Effective communication, personable, concise communication, adaptability, very good. Openness to ideas. We need more in the diplomat policymaker side. Yeah, cross-cultural understanding, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that. Conciseness, very good. Wow, you're all experts. What am I doing here? Awesome. Wow. Patience. That's a funny one. Perfect. Okay, sounds good. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again. Thank you so much for contributing to the discussion. All right. So you were all right. And actually you include some of the recommended skills to effectively engage in science diplomacy. For scientists, we have basic negotiation skills that you can acquire through simulation games, public speaking, building partnerships, interpersonal skills, balancing scientific facts. And in the diplomatic side, quantitative skills, basic data analysis. Some of them don't have that, unfortunately. Managing scientific uncertainty, and so on. If you look at both columns, you're going to see that a lot of the recommended skills are related to science communication, right? Or at least to the ability to know how to communicate in general. And I think this is very important in order to be successful and interconnect, right, both areas, the diplomacy with the science. Okay, so I talk about science communication, science diplomacy, but specifically, what is the role of science communication in diplomacy, in policymaking, and how can I apply this information to my different roles? So breaking news, in everything I do, I apply these skills as a science communicator into policymaking and diplomacy. And I'm going to start talking about me, right? Science is it's not only doing experiments. Communicating is very important. And this is some of the advocacy that I've done as a scientist, right? During my bachelor's, master's, and PhD. I make sure that I was able to share with others my knowledge and the different experiences that I have internationally, because this is a huge part of being a scientist, and I think it's a responsibility for us scientists to communicate that, right? So this is one way that I've been able to translate that science communicator role into my career. This was on steroids during the pandemic. This is some examples of the engagement that I did during the pandemic, from immunologist to science communicator during the pandemic. Everything started with writing an article for the main newspaper in Puerto Rico, that it was actually this one here in the middle. It was written for the El Nuevo Dia newspaper. And that released a chain reaction of interviews, podcasts, writing more blogs, writing more columns, you name it. It was crazy. I think I never been that busy in my life, well, except for now. But it actually gave me a purpose during the pandemic, during the lockdown, to communicate my knowledge about the immunology of the virus to other Puerto Ricans and other Latinos. As you may be aware, the misinformation and the disinformation was crazy during 2020 and beyond 2020, right? So I felt as a duty, it was my duty as a Latina, as a scientist, to just share my knowledge with fellow Latinos about what was known by that time about the virus, about the COVID-19 virus. And that led me to be awarded the Union of Concerned Scientists Science Defender Award, which is this one here. I was not expecting this. I was nominated by several people. So just one life lesson from this, everybody's watching you, okay? So don't burn bridges, never, ever. You never know when you might need that person. And just be mindful and about the things that you're posting on social media, the things that you're doing, right? I believe that social media is a double-edged sword. It's very good and effective if you know how to use it. And this is one of those examples which was good, right? Social media in order to use it. But be careful, because there are a bunch of horror stories of things that happen. It's very important to leverage your network to conduct effective science communication and outreach. And here are two examples of things that I've done. This is a group of women only. We're called the Sci Diplomats. It's like a funny name, or the Women Science Diplomats. I actually met all of them in a course in the AAA Science Diplomacy and Leadership course in Washington, D.C., which I think it was a cathartic event that made me realize that my career was going to lean towards science policy and science diplomacy. And we created a working group that we were able to write an article and publish it in a magazine that is called Impactor about the gender perspective to science diplomacy. What are the statistics of women diplomats, of women that are working in science diplomacy, and what is the status of in terms of a gender perspective in this area? So I was very happy with that collaboration, and it was a great experience, and I consider these ladies friends and colleagues to this day. So just another way for you to see how science communication merges into my career. And talking about the fellowships, right? Which I think is a very important aspect, and another way that I apply my science communication background. Like I mentioned, I'm a fellow of the AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship, which, for those of you that don't know, is a 1 year or 2 year immersion experience for PhD graduates mostly into the government. It's divided in 3 branches: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. And you get to be placed in an office for 1 or 2 years. And look at it like a postdoc, but in the government, basically. And it's a great way to bring scientists into policy making. It's a great tool. And this program has been around for 50 years, and is one of the most important in the nation. I'm also a fellow of the Inter-American Institute for Global Change Research, or IAI, Science, Technology, and Policy Fellowship, which is actually a similar program to the AAAS. It's homologous, but this one is focused on Latin America and the Caribbean. My first appointment is with the AAAS, and I have a sub-fellowship appointment with the STEP Fellowship. Talking about my role as a AAAS fellow, my first year, like I mentioned, I was a USAID at the U.S. Agency for International Development, working in the Middle East Regional Cooperation Program, or MERC. And MERC supports scientific research cooperation between Israel and the Middle East and North Africa region. My role as a fellow consists of promoting new partnerships, reviewing scientific proposals in the health sector, but also beyond. I learned a lot about agricultural issues, renewable energy, right? Because these are issues that are affecting that region particularly. I also had the opportunity of advising interagency committees. I sat in the interagency committee between USAID and Department of State in order to decide which grants we were funding and which we were not funding, right? So they were relying on my work and my criteria as a scientist to see if we were going to fund a project. So imagine the importance of being a good communicator in an instance like this, that you might be defending or advocating for a grant, right? So you have to be very certain of the things that you say. I also had the opportunity of conducting outreach with researchers and partners in the region. So I had the opportunity of traveling to Israel twice and to Jordan as well. Here we are with the US ambassador to Israel. And actually, we took him on a visit around Israel to show him the different projects that we were funding, because these projects are funded with taxpayers' money, so with money from all of us, right? So it's important to know that they are being compliant with those with the federal money that we're giving to them, and that is being put into good use. This program is a diplomatic tool, actually. It's been around for 4 years. And in order for a Arab-Israeli scientists to receive funding, they have to submit a grant together. So for example, a Jordanian scientist with one from Morocco, an Israeli scientist with one from, I don't know, from somewhere else in the Middle East, from Egypt, right? But they cannot be in the same country. And this is a diplomatic tool to promote scientific cooperation and political stability. I'm very sad with the political climate right now going in the Middle East, and I'm not going to go into details, right? Because it's unfortunate what's happening, without taking any side, of course. And I'm a scientist, so I just think about the status of the scientists right now, the projects, how they're going to be affected by the political climate. And I'm saying this all in a personal capacity. I forgot to mention that. I'm not representing the views of the US government. Just saying that, yeah, it's very sad. And I think everybody agrees that it's very sad. So going into the multicultural advocacy and diplomacy as a fellow. Here you can see pictures of me. And you might notice the clothes, right? That's the first thing that you might notice. This was actually in Petra, in Jordan, one of the wonders of the world. It's amazing if you've never been. This was in La Via Dolorosa in Jerusalem. As a Christian, it was very meaningful to me to be able to go, right, to the Holy Land, to this place, right? And this was in the Red Sea, this is between Jordan and Israel. Beautiful. So when you're visiting a foreign country, right, especially if it's somewhere in the Middle East, needless to say, you have to be very aware of what you wear, what you say, right? Especially if you're representing the US government. You are representing the US government at all times, even after hours, even after 5 p.m. So from my personal experience, it was challenging, right? In some sort of ways. For example, I'm an extrovert. I'm very loud, as you might notice. I like to make friends. I like to be myself. And it's very hard to balance that sometimes, right? And it's something that I'm constantly struggling with, and I'm constantly learning. And I think it's going to be a learning process throughout my life. It's very important to be aware of the culture, to understand where are they coming from, right? What are their beliefs and all these things, because you don't want to be disrespectful, of course. So you have to be mindful of that, because you are a visitor in their country. That's very important to remember. And there is a concept, going back to the science communication piece, there is a concept called intercultural communication that I wanted to bring. It's the capacity to communicate with people from diverse cultures. And this includes language skills, customs, ways of thinking, social norms, and habits, right? And I think intercultural communication is an ongoing process of exchanging messages based on the relationships history and individual experiences. Not everybody from the Middle East are going to have the same experiences, right? Or the same beliefs. So I think it's very important to be mindful of this. There are plenty of courses for us people working on the government to be more culturally aware of this. I think personally, right, that being a woman was an extra challenge in a region such as the Middle East. And in some instances, it was difficult, I'm not gonna lie. And that being added, being a Latina as well, which added an extra layer of difficulties. And I think it was very important to keep this concept of intercultural communication present at all times and not take things personal, right? And being able to navigate the ways of thinking, the social norms. And it's fascinating, but it's very hard as well. So this is an example of how I navigate that multicultural advocacy, because when you're dealing with policymakers or when you're dealing with high-level officials, you want to persuade them, right? Going back to the different ways of communicating, you want to persuade them to make change. You want to persuade them to create policies that are beneficial for scientists in the region, for scientific cooperation and political stability. And that starts from the moment you shake hands, from the moment you introduce yourself, you have to be on your game at all times. And I think it's very important to keep these things on mind. Okay, another discussion, and the last one. This is hypothetical. This didn't happen in real life, so don't worry. I'm gonna read it real quick, and then we're gonna go back to the Jamboard for 2 minutes because I want to know your inputs. Dr. Smith, an emerging diplomats or ED fellow, this is a fake fellowship, from the United States, was invited to present a research grants program in Morocco. Excited to share insights and opportunities, Dr. Smith prepared diligently for the presentation. However, despite thorough preparation, the presentation encountered unforeseen challenges. As Dr. Smith began his presentation, he noticed puzzled expressions among the Moroccan audience members. Despite speaking in English, which was understood by most attendees, Dr. Smith's message failed to resonate as expected. The audience seemed disconnected, and there was minimal engagement with the material. His presentation style and content did not align with the cultural norms and expectations of the Moroccan audience. The straightforward and concise approach commonly employed in Western presentations clash with the Moroccan preference for more elaborate and context-rich communication. And this is true. The presentation, the style presentation that we have here in the US is very different to the one in the Middle East. In addition, and this is, Dr. Smith made jokes during the presentation that offended some of the attendees. Dr. Smith's failure to acknowledge and incorporate Moroccan culture nuances further hindered effective communication. The audience felt disconnected and unable to relate to the information presented, leading to a breakdown in communication and understanding. Okay, what Dr. Smith could have done in preparation for his presentation in Morocco, based on what I said too. I'm gonna stop sharing. And if we could please go back, humor me just one more time. If you go to the second page of the Jamboard here, you're gonna find that question. 2 minutes. What do you think that Dr. Smith could have done in preparation for his presentation in Morocco? Consult a Moroccan. Get some insights from the Foreign Service Institute. The Foreign Service Institute is like a university, like a college for U.S. Department of State employees and also USAID. Great facilities. I was actually there for the last 2 weeks taking a course of Mexican culture, right, from all things, and also taking a course about to understand how the Department of State works. Wow, you're great. Practice with someone from Morocco, conversations, cultural background. Wow, this is huge. Cultural competency course, love it. Learn more about the culture. Love it. You're all great. Yeah. Adjust presentation to be culturally aligned. I agree 100%. There is a point here about cultural competency, right? That I want to emphasize on that. I'm going to emphasize on that now. You can keep, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. All right. Tips to engage in effective intercultural communication. This is a cheat sheet, right? Of course, embracing cultural diversity. Cultivate empathy. That's very important. There are so many ways, right, that you can be empathetic about things. You don't have to be a scientist to have empathy towards others. Be mindful of nonverbal cues. This is very important. Acknowledge and overcome language barriers. There are plenty of language courses as well that are available for us working in science diplomacy. Educate yourself. Personal biases are very important, right? Never underestimate those. Different cultural norms that you have to adapt. The impact of power distance, cultural exchange programs, just to get a sense, internships, exchange programs, attend and celebrate multicultural events, and so on. I think Dr. Smith failed. Maybe he thought that the joke that he was making was funny. He didn't do his research properly. And this is the importance of culturally relevant science communication as well. What might be funny for an audience or a person might be offensive for another type of audience. This is very important to keep it into consideration, okay? So it's a responsibility that we all have. And as a AAAS fellow in the Middle East, working for the Middle East Bureau, I took that very seriously, very serious. And I'm not gonna lie, there were some instances that I screwed up big time. They were not life and death situations, thank God. But I mean, we're human, we commit mistakes, and it's important to apologize and just keep going, okay? Okay, and now a little bit about what I'm doing now. I'm very excited about this role. I started in January 29, so it's going to be a month tomorrow. So I haven't changed any policy yet, so don't get too excited, but we are in the process of conquering the world step by step. I'm helping to coordinate U.S. foreign policy towards Mexico, and because Mexico is a leading participant in interagency processes within the U.S. Department of State. So I work within the economy or the econ section of the Office of Mexican Affairs. And I work with the ESTH portfolio, or the Environment, Science and Technology and Health portfolio. All the issues in science and technology between Mexico and the US, right? But as you might be aware, there are so many issues: migration, fentanyl, drugs, cartels, right? So I'm gonna get my feet wet a little bit into every single issue, because in my office, they deal with all these issues. Actually, the science portfolio is just a small portfolio of all the things that we handle in this office. In my role as a fellow, I will facilitate U.S.-Mexico policymaking. I'm already doing this, summarizing key technical information for policymakers and raising awareness of ongoing science and health-related issues. And the reason I said my day was so long, right, is that I just love working at the State Department. Some things just happen that you might be just walking around the corner in the hallway and you might meet with somebody important, right? You might have like a starstruck moment. I don't know. And today I met the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Mexico, and we had a meeting today, and everybody was running around in the office because he was visiting, and I was not at all anticipating that I was going to meet the ambassador today. Let me tell you that. Nevertheless, meeting with him, I was like, wait, this is too much. So I'm mentally, emotionally exhausted, as I hope I'm doing a good job not portraying that. But yeah, these things take a toll on you. It's good, it's exciting, it's amazing, but they also take a toll on you. But anyways, it was a very exciting day for me. And speaking a little bit more about the other fellowship, right? The STEP Science Diplomacy Fellowship, like I mentioned, is modeled after the AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship. Is the first fellowship program implemented at the national level in Latin America and the Caribbean, and this is very important. I'm honored to be part of this program. And they offer professional development across 3 training pillars: science diplomacy, communication, and leadership. Communication is everywhere, not only my career, but everywhere, right? And actually, us fellows, we work on group projects during the fellowship year. I'm actually working right now in a project looking at non-economic losses and damage in indigenous community in Oaxaca, Mexico, right? Non-economic losses and damages are effects, like direct effects from climate change in human life. Because when you think about climate change, you think about infrastructure problems, right? Heat hazards, all these things that represent money, economy. But what about the non-economic effects, like loss of knowledge, loss of life, loss of different cultural perspectives, all these things? So as fellows, we're looking at those aspects in a Latin American context. So I'm very excited about this. And we actually published a column recently. I'm going to send you the link in the chat for those of you that want to read it. It was published in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. In transitioning to joining professional societies, of course, we have so many professional societies and academic institutions, but some of them provide training in policy and diplomacy. We have NSPN, that I'm going to be talking about that too. We have the AAAS that also provides a bunch of training for PhD level students and postdocs. And yes, we have different trainings. I'm going to focus on one of them. I'm going to start with this one, with the ASBMB, with the American Association for Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, I think it is. They have an advocacy training program that I think is open, that you can all apply to this. And this was also an opportunity to navigate multicultural advocacy at the local level. In Minnesota, in Rochester, Minnesota, I was working in a project as a fellow on vaccine hesitancy outreach in Somali communities. There is a lot of Somali folks, specifically in Rochester, Minnesota. And through this project, we have to develop an advocacy project on something that interested us. And of course, as an immunologist, I was interested in vaccine hesitancy. People in the Somali community believe that vaccines could give autism, and that also some of the vaccines they have poor derivatives inside of them, like when they create them. Actually, this is not the worst of the problems, right? Because this could be easily solved with some knowledge, right? Just giving them the knowledge they need to make an informed decision. When you have religious beliefs or other types of beliefs that are more ingrained into the culture and the values of the people, is more difficult to break this. So I was actually looking into a Senate bill that, of course, it didn't pass the last time I checked. It was a deletion bill that wanted to eliminate all consensus belief exceptions to vaccines for all children attending daycare, public or private elementary or secondary school, or homeschool. Basically, this bill was going to force parents, emphasis on that, force them to vaccinate their kids, right? So I went into a field trip to meet with the Congressman Jim Hagedorn from Minnesota, Senator Amy Klobuchar, that was for Minnesota too, before running as a presidential candidate. And this is the mayor of Rochester, Minnesota, that I also have the opportunity of meeting with her and discussing this bill, right? So it was a great advocacy exercise and a way to navigate multicultural advocacy. I had the opportunity of visiting the leaders of the Somali community, giving them a presentation about vaccine hesitancy. And of course, I used my credentials as a PhD student from Mayo Clinic, because they respect Mayo Clinic a lot. And you have to leverage all your networks, like I mentioned in my previous slide. And it was a great exercise to understand the values, where they were coming from, and how we could better help them to understand the benefits of vaccine and to answer their questions. They had a radio station, and we also were in conversations of me appearing in the radio station. Unfortunately, that didn't go anywhere, but this is something that I try to do. Mayo Clinic has a task force. They have a vaccine hesitancy working group that tackles specifically the Somali community. And I was able to partner with them in a lot of these issues. So it was a great experience and another way to navigate multicultural advocacy, being respectful and mindful of their cultural background and beliefs. Other trainings, policy and diplomacy trainings encompassing the LAC region and beyond. I'm very focused on the Latin America and the Caribbean region, of course, because of my ethnicity, my cultural background, but also because of my current role at the Office of Mexican Affairs. And there are several trainings. We have the AAAS to Us, which is normally hosted in Trieste, Italy. Unfortunately, I did it during the pandemic, so it was online, boo. But you can go to Trieste, all expenses paid for those of you interested. And it was good to get a perspective, not only from Latin America, but also from other parts of the world. It was a great experience. The Inside SP Innovation and Science Diplomacy School, this is focused on Brazil, mostly on issues in Brazil. So it was also great to understand a little bit more about the policy and diplomacy in other areas. And of course, I have to mention NSPN. NSPN has great programs. One of them is called the Science Policy Scholars or the SciPol Scholars. When I participate, I don't know how it is right now, it was a 1-month boot camp. And then you had the opportunity of doing a 6-month paid internship. I'm going to emphasize that, paid internship with a partner organization in a project. So it was, I think, I never seen that before, right? So kudos to NSPN. And I had the opportunity of doing a 6-month paid internship with a government relations firm that is called Lewisburg. It's based here in Washington, D.C., in Capitol Hill. And I work in a white paper providing recommendations on how to address vaccine hesitancy and misinformation and disinformation in minority communities. So it was a great experience. And going back to leveraging your networks, from that experience as a fellow at Lewisburg, they actually created a position for me as a policy advisor. So never burn bridges, again and again. And I was able to work with them for a year while I was applying to the AAAS fellowship. I was very honest with them. I told them I need a job because the application process is very long. So they graciously gave me an opportunity. Lewisburg is a government relations for research, healthcare, and education. I was part of the advocacy team that worked with NIH and other HHS agencies. And some of the roles that I performed as a policy advisor were advising clients on public health, biomedical research, and international affairs. I had the opportunity of engaging with congressional staff to advocate for clients. Here I am at Capitol Hill. Here we are with some of our clients, with the representative Jennifer Gonzalez, which is the Puerto Rico representative in Congress. I had the opportunity of developing policy memos, analysis, and webinars, and also creating science policy programs, helping to create science policy programs, fellowships for our clients. So it was a great experience overall. Another thing that I did and that I encourage you to do is to advocate through voluntary organizations, the third sector. I am a member of the Puerto Rico Science Policy Action Network and also Diplocientífica, or the Science Diplomacy Network in Latin America and the Caribbean. And through these roles, I leverage my role as science communicator a lot as well. Very quickly, PRSPAN is a network of scientists. Mostly of us are based on Puerto Rico and the US. We advocate for policy formulated based on scientific evidence. And actually, it was funded in the 2018 AAAS Caribbean Division meeting that was in Cabos, Puerto Rico, and that's where PRSPAN was funded. We did a lot of advocacy and science communication efforts during the COVID pandemic. We wrote several columns for newspapers, not all of them wrote by me, But this was very important. This was an important accomplishment, actually. We wanted we wrote a letter to the government elected officials demanding better policy decisions. And we leveraged our network in the Committee of Natural Resources at the House of Representatives of the United States. That resulted, and this is very important, in a bipartisan letter to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services demanding equal treatment for Puerto Rico in the COVID-19 responses. So this was a great accomplishment made by us students during the 2020 pandemic. Just asking for more PPE, for more vaccines, for more diagnostic tests. And this was very important. We also participated with the International Network for Governmental Science Advice, or INSA, and we were able to compare the different efforts made in Puerto Rico in comparison to other countries in Latin America. What was done during the pandemic, where were the needs, and where we were going further. And we also did a lot of advocacy during the 2020 elections in Puerto Rico. We interviewed people through, and this was a grant with the Union of Concerned Scientists. They gave us money, the UCS folks, in order to give these webinars that were Facebook Lives. And people could ask questions to the government candidates and other important stakeholders during the 2020 elections. And we didn't only talk about science, we talk about challenges with the schools and the communities, emergency preparedness, public policy challenges, economy, circular economy, and ecosystem restoration. So it was not only science, it was a bunch of things. And we had the opportunity with this grant from Union of Concerned Scientists to take the lead on this. Some achievements, bunch of newspapers and articles, television and radio interventions, visibility, of course, for all the members, national and international collaborations, and discussing important issues during the 2020 election cycle. So very happy to be a member. The same thing with the other network, the Diplo Científica. This is a network and observatory for science diplomacy in the Latin American region. Around 54, more or less, professionals in higher education. We're not all scientists. We have lawyers, we have people in higher education, we have diplomats. And we help in the communication between scientific and diplomatic communities, policymakers, academia, private sector, among others. This is very important. This is our baby, and this is going to be published soon. So stay tuned to my social media. We're working on a white paper with policy recommendations to protect the Amazonas. And we did this exercise taking feedback from attendees, that some of the attendees are actually here today. Thank you for your valuable input. At the Sustainability Research and Innovation Conference that was held in Panama City last year, in 2023, in the summer. So we got a lot of input from the attendees of that conference, but you also have a panel of experts of science diplomacy in the region, people from Colombia, from Brazil, from different parts. And we were able to put together this white paper that is going to be released soon between Diplo Científica and the IAI. So stay tuned for that. I'm super excited for that because we've been working in that for a while now. Some achievements: 20 plus blog posts, interviews, press note, podcasts, and seminars, also white papers. Diplo Científica member visibility worldwide, not only in the LAC region. International collaborations, peer review articles, and op-eds. And I want you to motivate you to follow us in social media, Diplo Científica. And also, this is the web page in case you want to visit and learn more about the organization. Okay, wrapping up, because I want to listen to your questions and we have 15 minutes. Some lessons learned through multicultural advocacy and diplomacy. Deeper understanding of cultural diversity influence on decision-making. I cannot stress this enough. I mean, we're human beings. We're going to have our own biases, even though we fight them, right? So it's important to understand how this cultural perspective, these diverse experiences influence decision-making and diplomacy. Very important, effective communication strategies, and I hope I convey this through my lecture. tailoring message for different audiences, the cultural relevance. You're not going to talk in the same way that you talk to somebody from the Middle East to somebody from Mexico. Overcoming language and communication barriers. And I'm not talking about the language per se. I'm talking about different communication. You can communicate in so many ways. It's not only like the oral way, right? So that's very important. Navigating cultural sensitivities. This is an ongoing process. And I think I'm learning this in the job, the importance of understanding cultural sensitivities and establishing limits and barriers, right? Things that you cannot cross is very important. Building collaborative partnerships, and I hope you saw that through my presentation, the importance of that, and how we can advocate through diplomacy for evidence-based policymaking, right? And how important is to be able to communicate in an effective way for diplomacy is very important. Take-home messages for all of you, scientists, policymakers, and whomever is joining us or watching this presentation or the recording later. Don't be afraid. Raise your voice to support evidence-informed policymaking. This is very important. Use and leverage your networks to support science diplomacy. Don't burn bridges. And I told this several times throughout my presentation. Use your expertise and skills. Science is not just about being in the lab. And you saw this in my presentation. Policymakers and scientists are not gods. They are humans. Talk to them. Talk to us. We're all human beings. It can be intimidating. I know that firsthand, but it's very important to raise your voice. And lastly, science is not partisan, it's political. And it's very important to remember that, especially in such a complicated year like 2024 with the elections coming up. And just to summarize, my role as science communicator has translated into all the things that I've done in my life. And I'm very passionate about what I do, and I'm very passionate about continuing being an advocate for science and policymaking. So, and through my presentation, you saw, right, and we know this, that diplomacy can enable scientific cooperation and peace building, but science can enable diplomacy and peace building as well. And I hope you understand that as well, that you cannot underestimate the power of scientific cooperation, especially in the example that I gave with the Middle East, how the fact that scientists from different parts in the Middle East are cooperating, are talking to each other, that maybe in other conditions they wouldn't be able to, or even allowed to talk to each other, and how this affects political stability and diplomacy. Thank you so much. This is my social media and contact. You can scan this QR code and it will take you to all my social media links. This is my email. And just let me know if you have any questions. And thank you so much for your attention and for being so, for participating as well in the two exercise. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the thorough presentation. That is an amazing track record, and I hope it will inspire the participants today to engage in such multicultural advocacy and diplomacy. And I believe we have 9 minutes for Q&A, so I will start reading some of these from the chat. So the first one is, how did you take the initial leap into science communication and finding the appropriate outlets? Yeah, because this is an area where scientists feel less comfortable and end up not engaging due to being unsure how to get started.
Yes, that's a great question. I saw a lot of colleagues and mentors that I saw all the exciting things that they were doing. And I'm like, why are you doing this? How are you doing this? Tell me more, you know. I was very curious for not saying another thing. And that definitely was a deal breaker on that. But I noticed that I was the elephant in the room. I enjoy, as a scientist, giving presentations, interacting with the public, all the things that scientists hate, at least at Mayo Clinic, that they hate that, right? And I thrive giving oral presentations. That was my favorite thing. And they were like, you're crazy. You're crazy. I hate that. So I make sure to receive training, to start getting training in science communication from the get-go, NSPN, AAAS, so many free courses that are available to you that were not available 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So take advantage of that. Social media is a great way to find those opportunities as well, and to create your own brand. That's what I've been doing for the last years, also creating my own brand. I created my website. I've been very active on social media. So I think this is a way to engage. And if you are shy, right, and don't know where to start, I think taking courses in science communication is the way to go, just to start and getting familiar with.
Perfect. Thank you. Here's a next question for you. So when interacting with researchers and or policymakers from a new culture, what are your first 3 steps in ensuring cultural competency? Do these steps vary depending on the culture or region?
That's a great question. Well, 3 steps. Okay. The first thing is I ask colleagues. I ask colleagues that are familiar with the person that I'm going to interact with. I do a quick Google search. You never know what you're going to find. It could be hilarious, or it could be nerve-wracking. I think quite the spectrum over there. I look through their social media. Some of them are very active as well, and you can get a sense of their values or their perspectives. That's very important, because you don't want to advocate in front of them for something that they hate or that they're completely against it, right? So you have to be informed about that. FSI, the Foreign Service Institute, also offers great courses for us, including fellows working with specific countries or regions. And I just took the Mexican course, that it was very enlightening, to understand the politics, to understand this year is election year as well in Mexico. So it's a very complicated year. They're having their election in June before us. I think it was enlightening. So yes, I think asking around and doing your homework is the way to go.
Perfect. So piggybacking off that, what's your advice regarding transitioning into science policy or diplomacy as a scientist? Like, is there a prime time in one's career to enter the pol or diplomacy space? For example, right after completing your PhD, or maybe a little later, what would you say?
No, I would say as soon as you can. At the beginning of my PhD, I knew that I didn't want to stay in academia. I knew that. My advisor always laughed, because I was very straightforward with him and say, hey, I'm not saying academia. Do you have a problem with that before I pick your lab? Like, I was very straightforward. I didn't know that I was going to be that. I was not 100% sure that I was going to policy and diplomacy, because I was interested in industry as well. I actually did some industry internships and took some industry courses, right, and professional development. So I think as soon as you can, there are so many resources nowadays that you can start applying to, from NSPN, from AAAS. AAAS has a great course. It's called the Case Workshop, Catalyzing Advocacy in Science and Engineering, that is open for PhD students and postdocs. So I think it's very important to start getting familiar right away, because that's going to make you more competitive to apply to a fellowship such as the AAAS, or such as the IAI, or other fellowships. There is one in California that I'm blanking on the name right now. So that's going to make you more competitive for those opportunities as well.
Yeah, I believe the California one is CCST.
Yeah, CCST. Yeah.
And
there is a list in the Johns Hopkins Science Policy site of all the fellowships. There are so many fellowships, scientific societies, research societies. There are so many fellowships available for you to apply.
Yeah, this kind of addresses the next question about additional opportunities for PhD STEM graduates. Definitely check out that website for Johns Hopkins. And what I would read out from this post here is do you know what are other options for like entry-level jobs in this space, or should the recent graduates just, go to that Hopkins site and start from there? And maybe you can give some examples of job position titles or relevant organizations or institutions.
Yeah, if you want to work for the government, I recommend USA Jobs. Is the best way to go. Unfortunately, it's very hard to enter the government. I think the fellowship is a good way to get your feet in the door. You can still apply. I mean, I've heard about successful stories that they apply the first time and they get accepted. But I think the fellowship is the best way. There are so many types of policy careers, right? You can go into industry with a pharmaceutical. They have a policy office normally, or a regulatory affairs office that you can work on. You can be a consultant for a government relations firm, like I did with Lewisburg. There are so many things that you could do. It depends on your interests. But for the government, they normally post them in USA Jobs.
Perfect. I think we have time to read out another question and then wrap up. So you mentioned a few times the importance of not burning bridges. Do you have an example of a situation that wasn't great, that could have been easier to burn a bridge that you decided not to? So how did you navigate that?
Yeah, hi Liz. Liz is a fellow AAAS fellow. Thanks for joining. Yes, there has been several instances, to be honest. Let's see, one that I can tell you about. Because there are some that I'm not allowed. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, maybe from Mayo Clinic. That's a safe one. From Mayo Clinic, there were several instances. For example, I had a professor once telling me that because I got a C in a test or something, that why I was doing a PhD to that level, right? I'm not going to tell you all the things that went through my mind as a Latina that I wanted to say to her, right? But I just shut up. I keep my composure, and I just start thinking about all the things that she hasn't done in her career. Well, actually, it made me feel better, right? Just seeing that. But I just swallow it, right? I said she's now she has a big position now at Mayo Clinic, so I just, and I just said, well, I don't think this is like a factor that is going to determine if I'm capable of doing this or not, right? The same thing with the GRE. Some of the institutions have eliminated the GRE once for all because they realize that's not a deal breaker. And I decided to shut up, and it was the best thing, right? Because she saw me doing amazing things with my PhD. And later on, she came to me asking for advice or recommending me for something. So that's one example that I can give you. I think taking the high road, right? Like Michelle Obama says, when they go low, you go high. I really like that. And sometimes it's very hard to accomplish, but I think sometimes you just have to shut up. Even if you are thinking, I don't know how many things you want to say to this person. I think going back to the point of not taking things personal, I think what people say about you speaks more of them than you, speaks more of their frustrations, of their insecurities, of everything, right? And this takes time to gain this mentality. It takes time, and it's something that is an ongoing process to this day. So I hope it helps.
It's also an inspiration to kind of have that mindset, but we're out of time. I think it's time to close this meeting, and I'm going to hand it over to
I'll take over.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. This was just an incredible session, to be honest. Thank you to our fantastic speaker and for providing your information for people to be able to follow up. If anybody was not able to grab that information, please feel free to reach out to NSPN and we are happy to connect you. With that, I am going to stop the recording.